Welcome to the altar. Welcome to the altar. Meet me at the altar.
What's up, everybody?
Hey,
what up?
We back for another episode of the Marriage Altaer podcast.
Hello.
Listen, I'm one of your hosts, Don Hopkins,
I'm Ernestine.
I'm Hope.
And I'm Cadero.
and we are excited for today's episode, and we're excited, most importantly, that you are here. And so we know that, oh, shoot, what was I about to say? It don't matter because we're going to keep rolling, baby. We ain't pausing because you know what? We keep it real, raw, and relatable. And so listen, we want you to, first of all, if you're not following, if you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button.
Come on now.
But most importantly, so you're staying up on all the videos that we want, that we're putting out, and you don't miss a thing, click that bell notification. Bing. Okay, with the baritone. I heard you.
You did.
Feels like a gong.
Anyway, yeah, and so also make sure that you're following us on all socials, but more importantly, Instagram. I say more importantly, it's not more importantly. However,
All of it's
they're very important. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at the Marriage Altaer, and that's spelled ALTAER, the Marriage Altaer. So yeah. Oh, actually, also, if you have questions, if you want to share your wins with us, we want to hear about it, and we want to talk about it. If you release us to talk about it, and you can email us at info. Please, we ain't gonna share everybody's story,
Right.
but if you'd like us to, or if you just want us to know, and you just want us to pray for you or to give you some advice, even just through email privately, we can do that. You can email us at info@themarriagealtaer.us. That's info@themarriagealtaer, ALTAER.us.
Yeah.
That was a rough intro,
You got through it though.
but we got through it because
We
God is on the throne.
Yes, he
That
is.
part.
So how we feeling today, family?
Overall, I feel good, but I'm also a little tired. Stayed up a little later than I said I was going to, but when duty calls.
Now when duty calls. Well, I'm just curious. What was you doing?
What was
You
the
just-
duty?
Well, she said this is the duty.
All I know is if you know,
Yeah,
you know. It's my duty.
Huh?
Ain't nobody ever seen Players Club?
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
So what you was just up scrolling or watching TV, praying? What you was doing?
I was going to say something so inappropriate.
Oh, we welcome it.
Don't look over here at me. You put yourself in this position.
It was date night.
Oh,
First of all, our date night
nice.
was delayed because of our child who came up with the last minute plan for himself.
Okay.
Children, y'all.
So
Children.
we incorporated him into our date night.
That was nice.
Having to stop and go get him and stuff. So that caused our date nights to be
Shift.
prolonged.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But we got through it. But you didn't answer her question.
you could have let that. You could have let that be.
Nah, you
Hey,
slapped me
we
on the butt
real raw
earlier.
relatable. Ain't that what we said?
Okay. Well,
Okay.
I said when duty calls, we'll just say it rhymes with duty.
And that was exactly
That's
what was
the sound?
happening.
Oh,
That was the exact
man.
sound that was happening.
Golly.
Yeah.
You know, my mama watches every episode.
Y'all married though.
Yeah.
That's right.
Y'all good.
We married.
I'm happy. Y'all.
Yeah.
Everybody was on one accord.
Like we said,
Huh?
this is for sure the best our marriage has ever been. The
I
best
No,
season
absolutely it is.
in all facets.
Come on now.
It's this.
Come on now.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
My repentance has been strong over the past. You know, repentance ain't just an apology.
That part.
It's a process. And
That part.
My repentance has been strong. I'm just weird. So what's wrong with us?
How have you been, Boo?
I'm good. I'm tired. I'm tired.
Dang, that's true
Truth
times.
is
That's
isn't it?
sometimes.
That's because we in that toddler phase where she be getting in the bed with us now. I thought we wasn't gonna hit that.
But you know
phase.
what? She's been good because I've been incorporating in our prayers that Novi will not come in our room, and she kind of look and listen. So now instead of just busting, she'll be like, come out. So she asked for permission most of the time.
Nah, last
But this
night.
morning, I was about to say, but this morning she just kind of busted up in that
She
joint.
just came in there.
And so I looked
Novi
at the
said, "I
clock
got
and I said,
dominion."
oh no, it's 4:00 in the morning. Kadero's like, oh, you might as well just let her sleep because, you know, she'll fall asleep
that
quicker
how
in
he
our
was
bed.
talking?
Yeah, because he was halfway asleep anyway.
first asked, do you want to take her back? And he was like, I don't care.
You asked that question?
Yeah, you don't be listening when you sleeping.
I don't.
Because she woke up once and I went to her room,
Yep.
got her
That was
back
about
down.
1 o'clock this morning.
And then she was cool. And then the second time, honestly, it was like, I ain't going back in there. Hope need to go this time.
Oh,
And
you
when-
wanted me to go back?
Yeah, I wanted you to go in there. and
Oh,
put
why
it
you
down.
say that? See,
I
that's
was
the
too
art of
tired.
communication. We'll talk about that on another episode.
Ah! Hey, we got another episode coming, y'all. We know what our topic is.
When I'm
Clear
sleepy,
and
when I'm
concise
tired, I don't
communication.
have the concise and clearness at all.
Not when you have
Now
sleep.
when you have
Yeah.
sleep, no, I get it.
So,
Tired. Okay,
Come
so
on
that's 2
in.
tireds. I'll add to a third tired. I'm a little tired, but I feel like I'm pushing through. I mean,
come on, push through.
you know, just got to do it.
Lord energize the saints.
Push.
I mean, was her foot in y'all's back?
Yes,
Her
it
knee
is
in your back?
constantly in her back. I don't know how many times I have clipped this child's toenails, but somehow I wake up with scratches on my legs. I don't understand. They sharp. But and then
Put some
it's
little
her
socks on
snoring between his snoring and her snoring.
Okay, so question.
Hmm.
Have you ever, like, when he's, like, really snoring, like, maybe shifted him
Oh
a little bit? To kind
babe, you want to roll over? Because what's not going to happen
Do
is
you
you're
wanna
going to
roll
snore in my
over?
ear.
Oh, so you ask.
Yeah, no,
Oh.
and I kind of encourage, like I kind of shift him a little bit, like you want to roll over, and he's like, oh, there you go.
And those,
That's a good way to put it.
and that's the moments when I fall asleep first. But don't let her fall asleep first.
Okay, hold on.
because
But how many
the
times do you?
hogs
Okay,
will be called.
This is
Whoa.
1 time
Whoa.
out of 10. 9 times out of 10. 9 times out of 10, you fall asleep first.
That's true, because I be tired, because I get up early and do what I need to do. You a night owl.
Hold on,
and
that was a
wake
little
up
shady.
late.
You what you mean you get up early and do what you got to do? I get up not early, but I do what I got to do.
Not early.
Wait, I thought you said you
Well,
were
I
trying to
do
get him.
now.
Okay.
I do now. I do. I wake up early.
There's a lot of doubt in the room.
There's a lot of doubt. What is happening this morning? There's,
Wait.
She's getting up earlier than she used to.
She is.
I am, and I have
more
no
so 'cause
choice
that
but
baby
to.
getting up earlier than she normally too.
That's what I'm saying. We
So-
up about 6 o'clock.
Ma'am, no.
Okay, let's
I'm
shift.
up
Who
at
hasn't
6.
answered how they doing today? Huh?
I'm up
Have
You
I?
were the
Oh,
last
I
one.
answered. Don, you answered.
I did. Whoa, no,
No, you
yeah.
didn't. You just
Nah.
I
intro.
started the question.
Okay, so how you doing, Don?
She gonna go ahead and move, shift it over the time. All right.
Shifting the
Well, I'm
atmosphere.
not tired.
Oh, good. You got. Oh,
That's good.
Okay.
Hey, turned up.
What you was gonna say?
Nothing.
You here now? I was gonna
you
say
gave him that energy.
He slept good.
Yeah, you slept well.
Well, that's what I
all I was
thought.
going to say.
You
The
should-
vitamin D.
We are out of control this morning. We need to stop and just start over. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so you feel good.
I feel good. Yeah.
The way
else?
she worded that.
You
ahead.
feel good? I feel good.
That's what I'm saying. I think you're
You're too far
fetching.
gone.
Huh? Goes
happening?
back to that last episode of when we was talking about porn. Like there was no need, because y'all did not use that and was true intimacy. That tiredness
Yeah.
is there on your end.
Go
Because,
back and watch
boy,
the last episode.
Go back and watch that last episode.
It was true
There was true intimacy in there.
True intimacy.
And for a man, it energizes. For the lady, she's like, whew. It was energizing. But
That's
boy, I'm
true.
tired.
That
It's
is
a
very
good
true.
tide.
This is quite hilarious.
This is because this has nothing to do.
We have currently talked for 8 minutes about something that is completely
Wow.
unrelated to anything.
Yeah.
But we're glad you feel good.
I
Yeah.
do feel good. I'm awake. I'm loving this weather.
Can
It's a little cooler.
Yes.
Oh, don't
I
get
know.
her started.
I know. Boy,
Oh,
I
I
know.
love
Hope
it.
is ready,
I
boy. She
love it.
ready for Christmas.
That's-
Hope was ready for
listen.
Christmas 2023.
Exactly. When it hit, not October, December 26th, I started the countdown. 364 more days.
That's hilarious. But yeah, no, today's a good day. It feels good. It feels good to be back in the stew, recording another episode, another podcast. And so, yeah, I actually just want to say, man, like, I appreciate everybody who watches the episodes, who follow us on Instagram, because right now we're currently, I don't know the exact number, maybe one of y'all can confirm, but on Instagram, we're at 1,250 followers, something like that.
It's over 1,200.
It's over 1,200. And y'all, considering that we just started this thing this year,
Yeah.
A few months ago.
it was more than a few months. It feels like a few months ago. It doesn't feel like the end of October.
When did we release the first episode? I don't know.
May,
This
right?
is.
Man.
I think
We can
May.
talk about this offline.
Y'all don't need to be in our meetings.
Talk about that.
Talk about
offline.
statistics.
Over here having staff meetings.
But I think we started the Instagram page like a month or two before that, just building anticipation.
Yeah.
And to see that, again, in less than a year that we've grown to over 1,200 followers on Instagram is great. And thank you. We appreciate y'all.
Yeah.
And then YouTube, even over 600 subscribers. And again, just a few months in, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Y'all rocking with
And so
us. We appreciate it.
we thank you guys for your consistency, and we will continue to be consistent on our end and releasing these videos and coming up with topics that we believe is going to help people and set them free and give them answers and give them clarity and direction, and even give them language to describe like what they're feeling, what you guys are experiencing and going through.
Yeah.
Even while being vulnerable,
Yeah.
expressing the things that we're going through and feeling. And so that's actually something we're going to do today as we talk about rejection and abandonment and like the effects that it's had on our lives, the effects that it still sometimes has on our life.
Right.
And so I want to talk about that. Let's kind of just jump in and ask a few questions. So how does fear and abandonment affect your relationships? Let's just start there. Like, does anybody have any personal experience with this? I know I do, but I know I talk a little long sometimes, so I'm going to give somebody else an opportunity to jump on.
We were talking about it a little bit, even on the way here, about kind of how a lot of times it has to do with, like you said, that past trauma. And for me, I think two moments of like abandonment or rejection that usually are the trigger points for me. I think about the time when my dad was gone for a while, and it was just like, okay, where, like, you're not here when I need you most. Like, and that's during that time of maybe like, I think 11 to 13, like those like very significant years. And he wasn't there. So it's just like those moments of feeling abandoned, feeling that rejection. Another time was my first girlfriend cheating on me. Like, it's like, wow, like that moment hit. And it was like, for me, it was like, yo, that's tough. Am I not enough? It got that feeling of that rejection made me internalize it and feel like, am I not enough? And I remember the point where it was like, I ain't gonna deal with girlfriends. I'm just gonna have friends. Like, everybody is, I'm gonna put at this like distance.
Yeah.
She making this face because the friends were a lot of female friends. Like, because I was that guy you can talk to, you can listen. I would listen, but I would say a lot of times those girls also put me in the friend zone because that's just what I was. Where my dear wife now wanted more, which is great. But I think there's a moment in our relationship now when those triggers pop up. If something happens where she expresses herself in a way, and for me, I felt rejected. And I feel like, oh, does she not want me? Oh, am I not good enough? And and it just takes me back kind of to those childhood moments.
So you still experience that today?
Yeah, today. I'll have those moments where, like, and for me, it's more of those, like, capturing that thought to be like, oh, that's not it. Or having a conversation, where were you coming from in that moment?
Getting clarity.
So you do
Yeah.
see clarity in some cases.
Yeah.
Asking. That's good. And you said you talked about your first girlfriend cheating on you. How old were you?
Probably like 13.
I was going to say 13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I figured it was young.
Yeah.
I'll say that I kind of a similar story. When I was 7 or 8, my parents divorced. And I was the daddy's boy. Like, I was the kid. When my dad walked in from work, I yelled his name, ran to him. Like, I was definitely a Hallmark movie.
Thanks for the reference.
Yeah. Like, that was me. And so, and raised in a Christian household. Now, you only know so much as a kid, right? Like, I it's like I knew my parents argued, but I kind of didn't know. I thought we was a family and like we were great, right? And so my dad, if I'm remembering this right, my dad gets stationed in Fort Worth, Texas, which happens to be where my mom is from. So all my family on my mom's side is in Fort Worth. And my dad wants to live out his retirement years in San Antonio because he loved it when he was stationed there, all that. Anyway, he was ready to go back, and gonna say this now. Both my parents had different views and different stories. So, Mama, if you're watching this is the story I know. Because it's different stories.
Yeah.
But what I remember is that he wanted to go back to San Antonio. She didn't want to go back, and he was like, I'm not living here. And they couldn't agree. And so she was like, well, maybe you should go back and we stay here for a while, whatever. Something to that effect. Anyway, all that's irrelevant. The point is, my dad left the house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like devastated by that.
Yeah.
Here I am living in a home that I'm not used to. I'm living with all my cousins and my grandparents. Like, it was like, what the heck is going on? And I'm seeing new things because we're living in the hood. So I'm seeing stuff I ain't really been exposed to before. And I'm just like, yo. But I remember in that moment, I obviously as a kid, I didn't know the language was, I feel abandoned.
Yeah.
I feel rejected. I didn't have the language. I was just like, this sucks.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see my dad. My dad would tuck me in the bed and pray for me at night, kiss me on the forehead as a kid. You know what I mean? Like, that was my dad. I didn't have none of that no more. And I'm just like, now my mom is with a guy who's beating on her. And I feel even more rejected and abandoned because I'm terrified and no one's coming to my rescue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, my mom is not leaving the situation. And then when she does leave, the guy comes back a week or two, however long later, you know, apologizes or whatever, and then she takes him back. And then it's the same thing over again. So I felt like my mom abandoned me because I feel like she wasn't protecting me, you know, and there's a lot of things that she didn't know. But again, as a kid, you're not thinking logically about things. You're just thinking like, this sucks.
Yeah.
And no one is trying to help me.
Yeah.
And so that drives me to insecurity because now I'm attracted to people, women who show me attention that seems like they care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I'm just like, man, but then that's unhealthy. And so one of my girlfriends, who was my high school sweetheart, leaves me for another guy. And now I feel like the only person who I felt like was really down for me also abandoned me.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You know, and multiple other stories of just different people, key figures in my life
Yeah.
who contributed to that rejection and abandonment, which led me to be the type of person I was as an adult. Right? Making decisions off of, no, this looks familiar. Oh, yeah. The way you talk is the way they talk. So now I need to watch you.
Yeah.
So you don't even have an opportunity to build a real relationship with me because I've already put you in a category because of just a trigger word that you said.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, so I vibe with a lot of the things that you're saying.
Me too.
You know, like, and the thing is, like, the girlfriends and all, a lot of those relationships wasn't even rooted in the best place anyway.
Right. But to us back then, it was like, that's what we had.
It was
It was everything.
Yeah. It was everything.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I can relate too. When you were talking about your father leaving, I thought about, whenever I was younger, my father left and got with someone else. I remember feeling abandoned and feeling like he chose her over me. And that's not what it was. But as a child, like you said, you don't know everything. So all I could think was he chose her over me. So I felt abandoned. And then fast forward, when I got pregnant at 19 with my daughter and had her at 20, I remember calling my boyfriend at the time, and he decided he wasn't going to be apart anymore. So I can recall being pregnant and being scared and being like, oh my God, I'm about to have this baby, and calling him, sitting there calling him over and over and over and over. You know, like you just call back to back, he goes to voicemail, you call again, and he wasn't answering, and feeling like, oh my God, I'm about to do this on my own. So I felt abandoned then. So then whenever we got married and we had like our first arguments and stuff and things weren't working out, my mind immediately went back to those times. I remember telling you one time, like, because you wanted to leave the house or something. I was like, don't leave. Everyone always leaves. I remember telling you that. We were like 25 or something. So that kind of like carried on. And then rejection too, being rejected from a young age about my size, me being thin, and I wasn't pretty enough to people, and people actually telling me that. So I carried like that rejection and abandonment all the way up into my adulthood. And then I had grown women as a woman telling me, Ernestine, you're so skinny. somebody at church talking about, girl, you look like you can wrap your belt around yourself twice at church.
Stop it.
I was like, no, I'm here to lift up the name of the Lord.
That has nothing to do with God. Why are we even talking?
Why are you talking about wrapping the belt around me twice?
I can't.
But it's like,
Can you
so
stop saying wrap your belt around me twice?
that's what she said.
I know, because I want to laugh, but I'm not.
I mean, it is funny. It is. I was mad, and that was when I had decided, you know what? I've been real nice.
But can I say this though? Let me say this. Ernestine was not that skinny though.
I wasn't. Not after I had my kids.
Not like that.
Yeah.
She wasn't that skinny to where you could wrap your belt around. That was very much like over exaggeration.
I think it was jealousy, honestly.
She wasn't that skinny.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it's still kind of like all compounded, and I carried that, and so I had a fear of being rejected and abandoned because of all that hoopla.
And I'm sure I didn't help. You know.
I wasn't there was rejection in our marriage too.
Yeah. I wasn't a present husband like that. You know what I mean? And so, but again, you got all these people who experience abandonment and rejection that don't heal, that don't know how, they don't even know they're abandoned and rejected. They just think that, oh, I've had some issues in my life, blah, 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 blah. And then you kind of just skate past it and it's like, but I'm going to make better decisions. Yeah. Well, all your decisions are rooted in the worldview of rejection and abandonment.
Right.
So to you feel like you're making normal decisions.
Right.
And you're not.
But you're not. You're in the matrix.
Yeah.
Right?
It's crazy.
Not real.
Yeah. It's crazy because I feel like we all have similar situations, right? Because I feel like I'm the exact same way. It was my boyfriend at the time. And I mean, I was like in deep like with this guy. Like deep like with this guy. Deep like. And I remember, y'all, I went to support him. He was a basketball player, right? I went to support him. And all of a sudden, I noticed we go, the game's over, and he just keeps walking by me, like not acknowledging me or anything like that. And at this point, we had been together for maybe like 2 years or something like that.
Oh, this is a long time. I thought you were going to say like 2 months.
No. Like, yeah. And so, I mean, like my family knew him. Like, I mean, we were tight. And I'm like, well, why is he not speaking to me? And so I'm the type, I'm not going to cause a scene. I'm just going to sit back and let it play out and see what happens, right? So I'm like, well, what's going on? And so this other girl comes and she was like, who's that with your mom? And he was like, oh, no, she's good. She's just like a sister to me, right? And I mean, we were boyfriend, girlfriend at this time. And I heard that. And I was like, wow. And at that point, this was like a road trip too. Like it took like 2.5 hours to get there. And so
okay,
like,
I'm sorry, pause. Okay. So this random girl shows up.
Well, she wasn't random to him.
Okay, got you. But she's random to you.
She's random to me.
And she asked him about who you are.
Yes, because
you're sitting
I'm with his
mom.
mother. Yes.
And he responds in hearing distance that you were like a sister to him.
I thought, okay, wow.
Yeah.
The audacity that he said this near you in hearing distance. This is wild. Please proceed.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking, the first thing I think about is, okay, first of all, I didn't rode up here, like hours, travel to see you, support you, all that stuff. And now I overhear you telling this girl, like, I'm just a sister. And I was like, wow. And so I kept my cool and I was like, okay. And so the whole ride home, I'm like just fuming at this point because we still had not had a conversation. He was just like, hey, thanks for coming. And like, that was it. And I was like, wow. And so I didn't tell I don't think his mom knew, but the whole ride, I'm just like bothered. And so I was just like, wow.
Were you alone? Did you drive alone?
No, it was me and his mom.
Oh.
Okay, so you're fuming, but his mama's sitting in the car. And y'all ain't talked about it. Dang.
But I'm just like, that feeling for me, that's when I was like, okay, that's the last straw. Like, I'm not going to be anybody's pretend sister. And later, like, he explained his reason for saying that. But I was like,
indulge us.
So basically, he said, like, she was a safe place for him. She was when he was in a bind, she would always come through either financially or like things like that, right? So he didn't want to mess up at that time what he had going on. Not excusing it. I appreciate the explanation, but it's still trash. Like, but I was like, so basically you were,
right?
I said, and a lie.
Well, and he was like, basically he was just using her for whatever he could get from her. And I was like, okay, but he didn't want to mess up that situation. So I was like, well, whatever. At that point, like we're done. I'm like, okay. So I just remember feeling like abandoned, rejected, like played, like all of the feelings. And I was like, okay. And that just crushed me because I was like, we had been together for years and it's like you hit me with that and it just was so random. So that was like the boyfriend situation. But then like everybody else, I feel like the father situation. And I remember being, of course, y'all know, like, we grew up, like, the Christmas, the big house with the family, everybody coming over, like, all of that stuff. And I remember my dad and my mom were separating, but at that point, you know, we grew up where this is adults' business. Like, we don't tell our children everything, right? So I'm still kind of left in the dark. Well, what is happening? And I kind of had some information, kind of didn't. But to me, it looked like my dad had just left and he started a family with somebody else. And so I was just like, well, dang, like, I mean, and he cut off everything. So now I have to figure out, well, how do I pay insurance? How do I do this? How do I do that? Because he wasn't supporting us anymore. And so I was just like, okay, so now I have to learn quickly how to be an adult and like figure out life. And at that point, my mom, you know, she's going through a divorce at that point. I was like, I feel like I can't come and ask her questions. Like, I don't want to be an extra burden. So it was just like a lot was going on. But in my eyes, I saw that my dad had left, and then I saw that he had started another family. And so now that makes me feel like, oh, well, they're important and I'm not, because you just left and didn't explain or say anything. So that was kind of my experience with the abandonment piece. And I do feel like it shows up in our marriage, but like you said, like, it's taken that thought captive, like, no, this isn't my dad, or this isn't my ex-boyfriend, or, you know, those situations. And just realizing, because I remember being like clingy, like I wouldn't want him to leave, because now the men in my life had left. And so now I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to hold on, you know, and make sure that you don't go anywhere, but kind of work through that.
Well, can we talk about that, since we're talking about triggers? Can we talk about what are some triggers? If you want to share, I'll share mine. What are some triggers that you've experienced? But then also, just for the audience too, how do you know, how do you recognize those triggers? Yeah, that's the question for the room. I feel like I always ask a question, then I answer it.
I'm about to say, I kind of want to know from Hope, though, like when you talk about just from, because us experiencing the clinginess, because that has been something we talked about even in our marriage. Like me going out with the guys, like it's hard because you're like, come, I don't like. How do you recognize it as that a trigger for you, and then how do you kind of work that? How have we worked that over the years?
Now, if we're being completely transparent here, I feel like that does have something to do with the clinginess. Also, past behaviors or experiences that we've had, right? So I feel like it's the combination of, and this was like early marriage, or like, you know, there would be times where he would go out and I wouldn't get a phone call before the night ended. And I'm like worried now, like, well, what's happening? What's going on? So there's the compounding of past issues between you and I, and then also the clinginess showing up because of my past. I think that kind of working through recognizing, I feel like honestly that you going out with the guys is more past behaviors between us versus the clinginess. Now the clinginess, as far as like, if you have like a work trip or something like that, or like if you are gone for a few days or like something like that, like that's when I feel like it shows up. Like, I don't want you to leave the house or like go on a trip, or because my dad went on trips, he went to work, he, you know, things like that. So I feel like it's the similarity in that. But did that answer your question?
That makes sense.
And did you realize that that's what it was? Like, did it take you a while to realize, okay, I feel this way when he goes somewhere because of what happened when I was younger?
It took me a while. It took me a long, like it probably, I would say probably within the last few years, like especially as Kadero, like would have to go away for work. I feel like it showed up like, why am I so clingy, or why don't I want him going away to work? And because I have the mindset, well, my dad went to work and my dad also cheated on my mom. So now it's in my mind, like knowing that Kadero is not my dad, but also knowing that I've always had that feeling that we talked about before, like of something happening with Kadero cheating. Like it's now in my mind, okay, well, he's going to work. Is there the possibility for him to cheat? He gets there a few days before the rest of the team gets there. That gives him, and this is just like transparent thoughts, like that gives him open opportunity because nobody is around him, or, you know, things like that you think of. And so I feel like, yeah, it's been probably like a few years ago that I've had the realization of this is where it stems from, because like I always lived with the thoughts and the feelings, but I never knew like, well, why am I feeling that way?
Yeah.
What got you to the realization? Just like
Time
the
with
Lord,
God.
the Lord, yeah.
Because I do have those
Lord will
prayers
do
of
that.
like, I do. And I have the prayers of like, Lord, reveal to me, like, why am I this way? Or why am I thinking this? Or because
Yeah.
I know like he's not that type of person. And he's not my dad or he's not my ex-boyfriend. And so it's like in time with prayer, like God will just reveal like, well.
I love that.
Yeah. So.
Man, that's good.
And I think it's so important for her in recognizing that, but then us having that conversation.
Yep.
Because now we can see, okay, where can I as a husband reassure her that, hey, when I'm going away, this is what's happening. What
Yeah.
can I do? Like, I have no problem of calling in more. And I know some of the stuff like you thought was past stuff that I remember when I used to go out and it's just me and it's like one other guy. We go out, we go to the bars, we hitting up, because we hitting these new cities, we checking everything out.
Yeah.
We get toasted, and then I may send a text. There was one time I didn't, and it was next morning. And so me now creating boundaries for myself, checking in all the time, different things like that, just to reassure, hey, everything good. Nothing's happening here.
Yeah.
I love that you said that because I've heard people say in relationships, she's the one with the problem. She's the one who has this issue. I don't need to reassure her. She needs to work on herself. But I love that you are partnering with her to help her through that because you are one.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have to be reminded that this is nothing that it just happened.
Right.
Something else happened, whether it's my actions in the past or a past trauma from with her dad. So
Yeah.
it would be best for me to help her in that situation as well,
Yeah,
and be accountable for myself in those situations and not make it worse for her.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you actually love your spouse.
That's
And
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
You actually love, like if you think about it, like Jesus loved us so much that he came and sacrificed his life so that we could get back on track.
Yeah.
He didn't look at us and say, "Hey, that's on you,"
Right.
Right.
Thank God.
right? Because the church is the bride of Christ. Like, no, that's on you.
Yeah.
You fix it.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm God.
Right.
I got myself together. You know what I mean? And I know that's
Yeah.
a different kind of an example, right? But the point is just like the church is the bride of Christ, our women our wives are, that's our bride.
That's our bride.
Yeah.
And the expectation is that we give our lives. You know what I mean? And I know we always kind of go to like, well, I'll die like for you. Like, yes, but,
Yeah.
And
I'm willing to sacrifice my level of comfort and wherever I am in life to ensure that we're on the same page,
Right.
that you are with me.
Because I love you just that much.
Because I love you, and I don't want you to feel like, and I don't want you to walk this thing alone.
Yeah.
I remember when my dad died, like, I felt alone. As if no one else has ever lost a father before.
Right.
But when you're in that thing, you feel alone.
Yeah.
You feel like you're the only one going through it.
Right.
And so her being present, even in that with me, and doing things that I didn't even ask her to do, like I had no expectations of her to do,
Yeah.
made me feel love. Like I remember, I don't want to say, it may have been the day or two after my dad died, and she came to me and said, "Hey, babe, I scheduled you a counseling session for Monday." And I was like, dang. I was like, I guess just like, dang, that was pretty good.
All right, girl. Yeah.
I wasn't thinking at all about counseling.
Right.
Yeah.
At all. But she was like, "Hey, I scheduled a counseling session. What day do you want to do it?" And so we scheduled it for Monday, and I did it right there. Matter of fact, I did an online virtual counseling session in my dad's bedroom because we were still in San Antonio at the time.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was amazing. Anyway, I'm saying all that to say that we jump in because we love our spouses, we love our wives, we love our husbands, right? Whatever the case is. And I would say for me, triggers, I had so many different triggers. You know what I mean? And all of my triggers were rooted in, like, obviously the past experiences. And so, there were times where, like, if she did something. Now, here's my issue. My issue was certain abandonment issues would trigger my abandonment issues. So, like, her abandonment triggers would trigger my abandonment issues.
Gotcha.
And then my way of dealing with it is I'll abandon you first before you abandon me.
Protect yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
gonna
People do
protect
that and they don't
myself.
even realize
Yeah.
they're doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'll be like, okay, you want to do that? Okay, cool. All right, bet. Like, but you ain't gonna be better than me though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I used to tell people, you can't be more petty than me. You think you can.
I'm King Petty.
King Petty. And honestly, I just realized how much abandonment triggers that I had. I want to say last week. I had a dream and I was being abandoned. I say abandoned. It was like rejection, like this random dream. I was at a church, don't know the church. I was with a pastor, don't know who the pastor, just some random people in my dream. And he invites me backstage, right, in the pastor's area. And he invites me backstage and I'm walking with him. And people are looking at me like, almost kind of like, what are you doing here? Like, this is like a sacred space. Like, not everyone is allowed back here. And I remember thinking like, whatever, okay, just ignoring it. And then he responds, this pastor in my dream responds and says, yeah, man, like, why are you, like, you don't have to follow me everywhere. And I remember thinking like, you invited me back here. And I remember it made me feel some kind of way. And in my dream, I was just like, I mean, okay, whatever, I'll just leave. And then I left. I woke up and the Lord told me, he started showing me that a lot of the safeguards that I've put in place, a lot of the frustrations that I have currently and in the past has all been tied to abandonment and rejection. Feeling forgotten about, feeling undervalued, feeling I was only important for the certain gifts that I had, but I really wasn't valuable. And I started thinking, like, I remember that morning, I just started thinking through all the things that I had been frustrated about, all the things that made me feel some kind of way, even all the things that made me feel like, man, I'm good. I'm really good. It's like, no, you're really not.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we mistake like abandonment and like the triggers that we get from abandonment with like no tolerance. Like, oh, like, man, shoot, like I don't play about that, boy. Like I have zero tolerance for that.
My cutoff game is strong.
Yeah, my cutoff game is strong.
Right.
All of those things that we say, but really what it is your abandonment is being triggered.
And so you go into protection mode.
You go into protection mode and pride. It's false humility. It's arrogance. Because you're trying to paint a picture that you're so strong and that like, oh, I don't play about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe that is the case, but it's not because you just this hard,
Right.
I don't play like, I have no tolerance for this.
Yeah.
No, you have no tolerance because you're afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this hurts and you see something that looks familiar.
Yeah.
It smells familiar and you don't want that.
Yeah.
And so you try to overcome it by overcompensating with this arrogant, prideful attitude.
Yeah.
And that was me for a long time.
Yeah.
I would get mad and be like, look, I don't care one way or another. But
Yeah.
you do.
You do. Yeah.
You do.
You do.
Let's put it on the table.
Yeah.
You care.
I know in our marriage, whenever things weren't going well for all those years, and there would be moments where I would like try to hug you or hold your hand or something, and you didn't really want to because we weren't connected at all. I had made like this vow in my mind. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to hug him. I'm not going to do this unless he hugs me first. Like I started like deciding all these things that I was going to do. And so for a while there, I purposely wouldn't hug you. And so even today, like I hug you all the time. Like sometimes I feel like I'm probably getting on his nerves. Like I hug him so
It's
much.
not getting on my nerves.
But every so often the thought will pop in like, well, he hasn't hugged you. Like, so maybe you should wait for him to hug you first. Like it'll try to creep back
That's
in.
a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will. It'll try to creep back in. But I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I'm not about to entertain that and 10 steps back after all of the progress that we made. But it's very easy to allow rejection and abandonment to cause you to move a certain way.
Yeah.
I'll say this too. Like, I spent all those years in the beginning of our marriage not being tapped in, not being present. And so now that I am present, like, there's times where I'll struggle in my mind. Like, if I'm doing a lot and I feel like maybe she ain't matching my energy, I start feeling like, I probably jumped in too much. I might need to back off a little bit. I'm doing too much because now my expectations is at a certain place, and when those expectations don't get met, the abandonment trigger, I back off.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, you ain't finna have me out here looking like no fool.
And it becomes,
Yeah, I was
and what they
gonna
really are unspoken expectations
Absolutely.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing about us is we match each other's energy so much
Yeah.
that if she's down, all of a sudden I'm down.
Yeah.
It's like, why am I down? Because she did something. It was like, ugh, well, now I just felt rejected because it's just the energy. She's just not feeling it right now. But instead of picking up, I'm like, ugh, I feel rejected. Now I just went down too.
I'm like, both
and now
of us
we
can't be
both
down.
can't be down. But
I need you to
that's
pick me
just
up,
been
brother.
our relationship like that with friendship for long. Like it was like, yo, we gotta match each other's energy.
Yeah.
And we do it on very high, but we also do it on very low,
Yeah.
which can be so detrimental
Yeah.
sometimes. We're like, yeah, one of us got to get it together.
Yeah.
And it's just literally not speaking about it. And it's just these unspoken expectations that if she's having that day, if she doesn't say anything to me of what's going on, I'm feeling a rejection from her.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, ugh, I'm not enough. I feel invalidated. I'm not.
Right.
What am I not doing? I've done it again. Like all these things come in my mind, and then I go into my little corner. And what I
And then
am
I
is,
turn around like, well, what happened to you? Like,
Like, why you in the corner?
why you over there looking at that?
yeah.
in the corner.
I was having my
Yeah.
moment, but what happened?
And the
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
is, y'all, it's like the Lord kind of was talking to me about this stuff and was like, it's okay. Like if he's not in an affectionate mood sometime, maybe because something happened and he needs a moment, that really is
It's
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay.
It's a hard thing to swallow though, because I'm like, no, come here. I want to hug you. I want to kiss you. I want to do all this stuff. But like sometimes people just need space, and it's like just
Right.
respecting that.
And when you're married, I think, so one of the other questions, well, I think we asked this question, but like, how do you recognize those patterns, those triggers, right? And one of the things that came to me is, yes, I can recognize it for myself, but as a couple, as a married couple, like, I'm gonna try my best to phrase this right. I feel like when I do something that triggers her, like I'm so attentive to her mood and how things change and how she even jokingly responds to certain things, recognizing like I must have just triggered something, and being willing to even be the first person to voice it. Like, hey, did that make you feel some kind of way when I
Yeah.
did that?
Yeah.
A lot of times we like, well, if she feels some kind of way, she'll say something.
Right. Right.
Like I don't know if I made him feel some kind of way, but I mean, if he ain't said nothing about it, then.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's necessary for me to say, "Hey, I said this earlier, or I did this earlier, and I was joking, but I felt like it kind of bothered you. Did this happen?
Yeah.
And if it did, like, hey, like there's the reassurance.
Yeah.
I want you to know I love you. First of all,
Right.
Second of all, it's not my intention to make you feel that way. And if I did, I'm sorry, but I want you to know X, Y, and Z. I love you. You don't have to
Yeah.
ever. You're safe with me. And I know that's one area that I've thought of that I have to do better in, because there's sometimes I'll say something, and sometimes I'm joking, but I guess my joking face is different than her joking face, and so she be like, "You were being rude," and I was like, "I was just playing with you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'll recognize it before she even says anything, and I'll just let her sit in it.
Yeah. I think that's too like why like intimacy is so important. Like you're getting to know your spouse, you're getting to know what ticks them, what makes them feel a certain type of way, and then also I always invite the Holy Spirit into my heart and like, Lord, like you can tell if I say something, then it's like this awkward pause. It's like, dang, like shouldn't have said that. Then you get the check, like, no, you know you shouldn't have said that. Or like you can just tell like this, it's a shift that takes place, and it's like, well, maybe I went too far, or maybe you know, okay, I do owe this apology. Like that was a little much, but yeah.
But I think what that does is and what we're talking about here is actually, I think it was one of the questions, but just how do you shift your mindset
Yeah.
when it comes to facing rejection or abandonment? And what Don was talking about and what you're talking about is kind of this adoption of growth.
Yeah.
Of, oh, maybe that just triggered, so let me be proactive and start in that. And even when you think about back over like different things that happen, if we now can reframe our thinking that it wasn't necessary. It may have felt like rejection, but it could have been also a redirection of something. When you start thinking about exes, like that's probably one of the first things you think about, ex that rejected you. Think about if you would have ended up with them, what life would be like. Man, that rejection may have been just some redirection, some protection. That
I'm thankful,
Lord,
honey.
thank you. And now I'm going to
Church
gratitude.
people say
that,
not rejection, but protection.
Yes. I'm thankful for that rejection, honey.
But you have those moments, or it teaches you something, or finding those teachable moments in that to now say, okay, for me, a lot of those things is I remember like, okay, this is what I don't want to do with my child.
Yeah.
So I'm now taking this moment of rejection, taking it as a gift, as saying, okay, now what can I learn from this to say, I need to be a present father now.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to miss
That's
those
good, bro.
opportunities where our daughter just wants time with me.
Yep.
She doesn't need anything else. She just wants time with me.
Yeah.
And I remember now I can go back to that feeling when all I wanted was time with dad. And he couldn't give that to me.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You say that, bro. That connects with me a whole lot, because there's been times where I've been tired coming home from work, and my boys, will be like, Dad, you want to go outside and play basketball? And my soul says no.
My soul.
My soul says no.
Like, and there's been times where I've told them, no, son, I said, I'm tired, man. I'm gonna go sit down. I've been at work all day. And I would watch them like, okay. And then they'll just go outside and they'll go play basketball by themselves. And then I'll just put on some tennis shoes and I'll just go out there and play. And man, it just, I think it's an awareness of just watching their reaction and responses. Like, well, I'm gonna go do it anyway. But then that triggered, this is what I was talking about earlier. Like sometimes it triggers the abandonment in me. So like I remember feeling like I wanted my dad's time and I couldn't have it. And I felt some kind of way. And I remembered that pain. I was like, man, get your butt up and go outside and play basketball.
That explains why you go ahead and put them shoes on. Because I'd be like, he looked like he about to pass out in there.
She be like, your boys get you do anything.
Because he over here about to fall out putting that shoe on. I'm like, dang, are you sure? I mean, you can wait 10 minutes.
Drink some water first.
Drink some
Tell
water.
the boy, like set a time. Tell the boys I'll be out there. Let's do it in an hour.
But I never want my sons to feel that there's times where I needed my father.
Yeah.
And he didn't really come through. So I just learned to just do it on my own.
Because they see the choice that you make.
Right.
Like they visually, like they'll have that. Like I remember going to him and he's saying no. And then I just see him laying down.
And they see the choices that I make for other things where I'm willing
Yeah.
to sacrifice
Yeah.
and get up and get it done, even
That's
though I'm
true.
tired.
That's
so
true.
now they're now I'm rooting abandonment into them,
That's it.
because now they're gonna grow up and like, man, I remember when my dad wanted to work on that podcast, or if he
Yeah.
wanted to do this, or
Yeah.
him mama having date nights. There was
Yeah.
nothing that was gonna get in the way. But man, it seems like every time I ask him to do something,
Yeah.
it's like kind of like not important.
Am I not important enough? Am I?
And now I got to listen to my son as when I'm 60, 70 years old.
On a
hear them talking
podcast.
on a podcast.
On the podcast, talking about his abandonment.
Or whatever they'll be doing
Yeah.
at that point.
in the clouds.
Right, in a spaceship.
Not the spaceship. But
Yeah.
I would say another way of recognizing those triggers is emotional responses. You know what I'm saying? Like there's times where like I can say something and maybe I'm not entirely thinking through how I'm saying it, and I can see her be like, I can see the change in
Yeah.
her because maybe she took it a certain kind of way, or maybe I did actually present it in a certain kind of way, and she was like I'm like, and that's my ability or my time to be like, okay, I just noticed that I need to address it. But a lot of times we don't address it within ourselves
Right.
either. We'll just deal with it. We'll just be upset. There's times where I felt like abandonment kick in from her, and I've addressed it because I love her and I don't want her blindsided later. And I don't want that, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I'm not just fighting for my healing and wholeness. I'm fighting for the wholeness of our marriage, the sanctity of our marriage, right? And so if I know I don't remember what it was some weeks back or some months back, and I remember just going to her and was like, I don't feel like I have enough time with you.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, we have date nights every Thursday, but I was like, that ain't enough. Like, that's not enough. For years, it was enough. Actually, for some time,
We didn't have date night.
we didn't have a date night.
Yeah.
But I just remember thinking like, it's not enough.
Yeah.
And I remember I think that was the one that made her kind of emotional, and she has her reasons for why that did. I'll let her share that if she wants to. But I remember thinking like, at first I was just like, is she really emotional about this? Like,
Yeah, because it was just like, it was almost healing for me because it was something that I had wanted for so many years to where I stopped expecting it. And so whenever you started like really revving up, I was just like overcome with emotion, like, wow. And then also because God had told me what he was going to do in you. And so to actually be walking in it and see it, it just, when I reflect on it, it makes me emotional.
yeah.
All the time. It just does. I'll just be chilling.
Yeah.
It'll come back to me like, dang, I can. God is good.
Good, right?
Yeah.
Boy,
Yeah.
he did his big.
Another recognizable word or phrase to show that somebody's abandonment trigger just got triggered is when they say stuff. I mean, I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, the quickest way to recognize
Yeah.
that somebody is hurt is when they say they don't care.
Yeah.
Oh man, I ain't wild about that. Oh, wait a minute. Let's go back.
Dig a little deeper.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
Because again, and I'll put myself on the chopping block. I'm that guy. I have been that guy at least, where I'm like, man, I don't care, bro. Like, I don't care. Like, no, but you do care. Because it really obviously looks like it's bothering you.
Right, right,
Like, you're so adamant about proving to me that you don't care.
right. Like, okay.
Like, why are you trying to convince me?
Right.
Like, you know, and it sounds like you're trying to convince yourself.
Yeah.
that
Like,
part.
that's your negative pep talk. I don't care. Like, I ain't worried about it. Like, man, shoot, look, people leave me on. I ain't worried about it. Like, I'm good by myself. That
Yeah.
one is the worst one right
Yeah.
there. Like, I'm fine all by myself. I'm good. I promise you, I'm Gucci.
Yeah. Not Gucci.
Okay. I'm gonna let you have it.
All right.
But yeah, like, I think it shows up in all kinds of facets. And so I think being aware of what your triggers are for you, like if you know you're being triggered in some area,
Yeah.
be willing to acknowledge it.
I think that's the part, like being willing to acknowledge it. Because like I know like there's been like the rejection piece that you've talked about. And I think like the beautiful thing about marriage is the selflessness, right? Because a lot of times we can make it about us. Like if that person says no to us or not feeling it right now, we automatically think like, oh, it's something I did or what did I do wrong? And it's like, take yourself out of it for a minute. Like love is selfless and think about, okay, well, why are they saying this? Are they in a certain mood? You know, have I done anything? And asking the questions more than just assuming, because that can be the worst of it all,
Right.
is assuming that it's you. And then you go into this bubble and now there's like a division or separation when all it was maybe that person was tired or hungry or just didn't feel like it. And it's like, it could be that simple, but now you're dealing with this rejection piece and now going deeper in your thoughts. And it's like, it didn't even have to be all of that if you would have just asked a question. So I think like
Right.
that would be, if anything, to take away. I know y'all gonna take away a lot from this episode, but like kind of just stop and pause and have that moment of, okay, wait, this is not about me. What is their reasoning behind what they're saying?
Yeah.
And for some people, they don't know how to recognize what their triggers are and what's causing things. So we talked about this earlier. Go to counseling.
Yeah.
That right. And I was gonna say, well, that leads into what I was gonna say as we kind of finish up this episode. What are some practical steps that we can do to heal?
Yeah.
And you may not, and that's perfect because some people are like, well, shoot, I don't know what my triggers are.
Yeah.
Well, one way to find out is to go in counseling and start
Yeah.
talking.
Just
Yep.
start talking. Another
So
thing,
true.
I talked about this on another episode, but you know, and you mentioned today about being connected to God and God kind of revealing things to you. And so I was spending time with God and stuff, and that's when, as we have been like in the best season and God's been showing me, okay, some of the things that you thought were not issues anymore, they actually still are. And so God had me journal. I talked about this, like I said before, where I wrote down every moment in my life where I remember being rejected, from as young as I can remember all the way up until my adulthood, because I've even had moments where I would feel some type of way if certain friends didn't invite me or, you know, so just all the different things, and just writing to that girl or that woman, you know, and acknowledging her thoughts, acknowledging her feelings, and telling her what God says about her, and just going through the entire process with all those different moments, because I had never actually taken time to process all of those different moments. So
Yeah.
that was really
That's
healing
really
and good
good.
for me.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
I was piggyback over because you said spend that time with God, knowing what God says about you.
Yeah.
Because I think in that moment you now can separate self-worth from rejection.
Right.
And you can then understand that rejection deals with the circumstance, not your value.
Right.
And so you will know how valuable you are if you can separate it and then say, what was the circumstance in that moment? Okay, I see the rejection because of the circumstance, and it had nothing to do with how valuable I am.
Right.
I think when you can understand that, it can shift that mindset.
Yeah.
Right. Because just because a person doesn't want you, that doesn't mean you're not valuable. You're just not the person for them.
Yeah. I'll say
that's
this
okay.
last thing too. Your abandonment talks to you. Just listen. Be willing to listen and be willing to acknowledge its presence.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to come into agreement with its presence because your abandonment will tell you that you're alone and that no one loves you and cares for you.
Yep.
But recognize it, that it's speaking to you, because you hear it all the time. When something happens, when something triggers you, your language starts shifting. You start saying stuff like, "Oh, I don't care about that," and "Oh, yeah, they have their own little friend group. They don't care about me, so why should I care?" Like that's that abandonment talking. Listen, and then it starts to give you an awareness of like, "Oh shoot, I must really feel some kind of way about this. I need to deal with this."
Yeah.
You deal with it through counseling. You deal with it through prayer. The Holy Spirit will help you. He said He will give freely all who ask for wisdom. He will give it to you. And so if you're watching this right now, pray and ask the Lord, says, Father, reveal to me every area that's unhealed, every unhealed abandonment, every trigger, every trauma that I have not healed from. Reveal it to me.
Yeah.
And sometimes that reveal it to you will be, you'll have an episode where you'll feel that feeling.
Yep.
And you'll be able to recognize
Like
it.
you have an awareness.
You
of
have
it.
an awareness of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, the Holy Spirit is going to be the thing that brings you healing, but also getting counseling, because they'll help you give like language to it,
Yeah.
and understand and be able to trace it back to where its original origin is. And sometimes that stuff is rooted. Most times that stuff is rooted in your childhood.
Yeah.
Your daddy left. Most of us.
Yeah.
All of us.
All of us.
In some kind of fashion, like daddy left, and that was the initiation. And then we begin to look for daddy in something else, and then that thing failed us, and then the next thing failed us, and now here we are, grown-ups that are causing abandonment in other people because of our unhealed abandonment. And most of the times those other people are kids.
All I hear from that is, Daddy, step up.
Step up.
Daddy, step
The
up.
daddies. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
are so important.
Y'all are.
Yeah.
And we're so important.
I connect with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we love you guys so much. We hope that y'all have gotten something from this episode. Make sure, like we said earlier, that you guys are tuned in to all of our socials on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of that stuff. We are at The Marriage Altaer. Also, if you have wins or you want to send us an email or anything like that, email us at info@themarriagealtaer. Once again, we spell that ALTAER.US.
Yep.
Also, make sure you subscribe to our channel if you are liking this content,
Yeah.
and make sure you hit the bell notification. Ding, ding. Yes, to get notified. Oh, I mean, it's
We're progressing out here. You know what I mean?
Christmas bells.
The Christmas bells. You know what I mean?
But yes, make sure you hit the button and all that stuff to stay on top of what we're doing and what we got going on.
Can I add one
Yeah,
more thing to
go ahead.
our audio listeners, man? The folks
okay.
who ain't the Apple podcast, the Spotify listeners.
Yeah.
Make sure you rate us, man. We want that
yeah.
5 stars,
Only 5
man. Get
stars
it out
now.
there.
Don't
Share
rate
it
us
with
nothing
people.
else.
Let them know we out here. The Marriage Altaer is out here.
Yeah, we
Out
out
here.
here.
We
And make
out
sure
here.
you tell all your friends, all your people, let everybody know what you guys are listening to.
Yeah.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna add to the add-on.
Okay.
So going back to the email, yes, if you have wins that you want to share, but for some reason I feel led to say that maybe you have some more questions regarding this abandonment issue that we talked about, or maybe it's a different issue. Like, we want you to be able to email us, right? Because we're not just a podcast. We're a community.
Yeah.
And so we want you to be able to email us and ask us some of the hard questions. Some questions, maybe you're trying to figure some things out.
Yeah.
And maybe you're like, I can't afford to go to counseling, but I have questions.
Yeah.
Like, we're not licensed professional counselors,
At all.
but we are experienced at this thing called life.
Yeah.
We have plenty of experience between all 4 of us. And if we can answer any question that will help you get a little bit more insight to your situation, feel free to email us. info@themarriagealtaer.us.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.
Meet me at the altar.
Hey.
Talking about us.
Meet me at the altar.